Hi everyone, in this video we are going to talk about auto scaling groups. So auto scaling groups are a collection of EC2 instances logically grouped together for auto scaling and management. When we talk about auto scaling, auto scaling ensures that we have the correct number of EC2 instances available to us for servicing the load of our application. So suppose you have a website running inside one EC2 instance, and suppose during some time the load on it increases, maybe during weekends or during peak hours. So if you have a single EC2 instance, it won't be able to handle the load correctly. So you have an option of provisioning more instance that can handle the load. But suppose during the weekends or during off peak hours, the capacity or the load goes down, then you'll be unnecessarily paying for the additional EC2 instance. So using auto scaling and auto scaling groups, you can ensure that every time you have the correct number of EC2 instance available to us. So means you can define the minimum, the maximum number of EC2 instance as part of your auto scaling groups, and it will ensure that if you have a minimum number of instance, so your auto scaling group will ensure your capacity doesn't go below that. So you already always have a minimum number of EC2 instance running, and you can also define the max number of instance, and it will ensure okay, the number of your EC2 instance doesn't go above that maximum limit. And you can define different scaling policies, so based on the load of the application or based on the number of requests that the application receives, you can increase or decrease the number of EC2 instance automatically. And auto scaling groups can also use health checks and auto scaling policies to ensure the desired number of instances are available at all the time. So the health checks ensure, suppose one of your instance, so you have two instances running and one of them goes down, so health check will ensure it will remove that instance, and it will start a new instance to replace that instance, just to ensure your minimum capacity is there all the time. And in the auto scaling group, you can adjust the group size, so you can do it manually or you can do it automatically based on the auto scaling policies that you define. So when you define an auto scaling policy, so it can dynamically increase or decrease the size of the group based on different parameters like the CPU utilization, the network in, network out, or the number of requests that are coming. So basically auto scaling will ensure you have the correct number of EC2 instance running at all the time based on the application load that you have. And so there are basically three auto scaling components that you need to know about. So first is the launch template of the configuration, and the second is the auto scaling group, and the third one is the auto scaling policy that you create. So we'll look at them when we go to the console. So without wasting much time, let's head to the EC2 console right now and let's see how it works. So we are logged into the AWS management console. So I'll go to EC2, and in the left hand side inside the auto scaling section, I just click on auto scaling groups and just create an auto scaling group, and I just name it my ASG demo. And the first thing that we need to create is a launch template, or I can also create a launch configuration. So basically a launch template or a configuration defines the settings which are going to be there for the EC2 instances that are going to be provisioned as part of the auto scaling group. So I can define things like the AMI ID or the instance type, in which subnet it should launch, the storage it needs, the key pairs, and all those things. So earlier they used to be launch configurations, but AWS now recommends using launch template for the same, as it supports many of the new features also. So with this one, I just create a launch template first. So as I don't have any launch template, I just click on create a launch template. I just give this a name. I keep the description as blank, and here I select the AMI ID. So for this one, I select Amazon Linux to AMI. Here I can select the instance type, which I'm going to keep as t2.micro. Here I'll select a key pair which I can use to log into my EC2 instance. So I already have an existing key pair which I'm going to select, but if you don't have, you can anyways go and create a new key pair also. In the network setting, I can specify the subnets in which my EC2 instances are going to be launched. So I have many existing subnets, so I just select any one of them. And here I'll select the security groups. So I'll select my Linux security group. So this is an existing security group I'm using, but yeah, it has allows inbound connections to port 22. So volume, I just keep it as default of 8 GBs, and if I want, I can specify the tags also. And the network interfaces, I'm just going to keep it as default settings. And if you see, we have an advanced details section also. So if you want, you can request for spot instances, and you can have termination protection enabled. You can set up detailed CloudWatch monitoring, and you can specify the placement groups within which your EC2 instance should be launched. So I'm not going to change any of this right now. So I just go and create a launch template. So my launch template is now ready. It's created now. So I go back to the previous screen. I just refresh this, and you see my demo template is present now. So I just select this, and here I just see the properties, whatever I selected while creating the launch template, and here you get a version also. So like one difference to note between a launch template and a launch configuration is the launch configurations are non-editable. So if I've created a launch configuration and I want to change it, so I don't have an option of modifying it. I have to delete the launch configuration and create a new one. But with launch template, like, you can have different versions. So I can modify this, create a new version for the same. So that's an advantage you also get with the launch template. So as my demo template selected, I just click on next. And here, you have to configure the instance purchase options. So either you can go ahead with whatever you specified in the launch template, or you can change this to have a different purchase options. Like, you can have a combination of on-demand instance or in spot instance and all. For the simplicity of this demo, I just select adhere to launch template, and here I'm selecting the VPC inside which my EC2 instance are going to be launched. And here I can select the subnets which I want my EC2 instance to be part of. So for this one, I just select 3 subnets, and I'll click on next. And here, if I want, I can create a load balancer also. So basically, the load balancer will be used to distribute traffic among your different EC2 instances. That will be part of your auto scaling group. So it's normally a good idea to have it behind a load balancer, because then load balancer will take care of redirecting the traffic, or any of the instance is down, so load balancer will automatically take care of not sending traffic to that instance and redirecting to some other place. But for this one, I just keep it as no load balancer, as we're just going to see how auto scaling group works. And for health checks, if you see, the default EC2 health checks is selected, and the grace period is 300 seconds. So basically, in grace period, you specify the time. So it's a time after your EC2 instance gets launched, it will wait for this much seconds before performing the health check. So you don't want it to be a very small number, because once your EC2 instance launch, so they may have some time to get initialized. So there may be chances that before the instance is initialized, the health check gets triggered and it detects the instance as being fair, and it will trigger another instance creation. And also 300 seconds, it's a pretty good number. So, but for this demo, I just change it to 150. And here, if I want, I can enable CloudWatch detail monitoring also, but let's go with the default option. I click on next. So here I can specify the size of my auto scaling group. So I have different options. I can have a desired capacity. So basically, a desired capacity is the one that I want to start with. So I can select it as 2, and then we have the minimum capacity. So minimum capacity is the minimum number of instances that an auto scaling group is going to ensure it's always going to be running. So for this one, let's just keep it as 2, and maximum capacity I'll switch it to 4. So in maximum capacity, my auto scaling group will ensure that the number of EC2 instance won't exceed 4 number. So right now I have the minimum of 2, maximum 4, and desired of 2. And here, I can specify the scaling policies I want to define. So if I want, I don't have to define any scaling policy. I can just configure it manually also. After creating the auto scaling group, I can come here, change the number. But it's a good idea, and it's a very good logic to have a scaling policy defined, in which case automatically, based on certain metrics or parameters, the auto scaling group will automatically trigger the creation and deletion of instances So for this one, I just select a target tracking scaling policy. So I just keep it to average CPU utilization, but you can select network in, network out, or the number of requests that are coming as a part of your application load balancer. Or for this one, let's just select average CPU utilization. So keep the target value as 50, and I'll say instance needs around 300 seconds warm up for being included in metrics. So after an instance is launched, it will wait for around 300 seconds before collecting the metrics and all. And yeah, just to know, like we are going ahead with default monitoring. So CloudWatch basically sends the metrics in 5 minutes intervals. So this is scale in production. I keep it as default. And if I want, I can just add a notification. I can have an SNS topic which can be used to send emails to some admins whenever a new instance gets created or instance get terminated. But for this one, I won't configure any notification. Click on next. If I want, I can just specify the tags here. So now over here I can just review the options that I selected now. So if you see my what is the launch template I selected, what's the instance purchase options, and what is the VPC and the availability zones I have selected, whether I have load balancing selected or not, what is my group size, the scaling policy. So if I'm happy with it, I'll just go ahead and create an auto scaling group. So my auto scaling group is now created, and if you see the status, it is showing updating capacity. And here you know the desired is 2, minimum 2 and max 4. So I can just go inside my auto scaling group, and so I have different options here. So the activity section is going to show whatever activities have been happening as part of this group. So if you see here, initially I didn't have any EC2 instance running. So the auto scaling, and if you see the minimum, I have specified the minimum desired capacity as 2. So my auto scaling group has gone ahead and it has successfully launched 2 EC2 instance. So just to see, I'll just go to the EC2 dashboard. And if you see, these 2 instances have been provisioned immediately and they are still being initialized. So my auto scaling group has ensured that it is maintaining the minimum capacity of 2 instances. And here I can go to instance management also. So it will show you the instances that are part of this auto scaling group, whether they have been in service, what's the health status and all. Okay, and so for this demo, so now if you see, both are in running state. So what I'll do is I just go ahead and terminate one of the instance. So if you see, we have only one now in running state and the existing one is shutting down now. So what this will do is, initially it will cause the health check to fail, and once that fails, your auto scaling group will detect okay, you have only one instance running but your minimum capacity was 2. So auto scaling group will ensure it will spin up one more instance just to replace this failed instance. So let me just go to the activity. So we specified the health check to happen in 150 seconds, so it may take a bit of a time before it gets active. So just pause the video till then. So now just after a minute, if you see, so it has detected that an instance was taken out of a service. So my EC2 health check failed because the instance was terminated, and if you see, it has started provisioning one more instance because the capacity means the minimum instance was 2 and it reduced to 1. So just to meet that minimum capacity, one more instance is being provisioned automatically. If I go to my instance section and just refresh this, so if you see, it has provisioned one more instance, a new instance, to replace that terminated instance. So this is quite helpful, like if you have a big website that is running behind 3-4 EC2 instance, and suppose one of them goes down, then auto scaling group will automatically take care of it, of provisioning a new instance. That can be quite helpful in that scenario. Now what I'll do is, what we'll do, and we'll just try to simulate some load on my EC2 instance. As you see, because we have set up a auto scaling policy, so which will detect if the CPU utilization goes above 50. then it will automatically add a EC2 instance to our auto scaling group. So to just test that, what I do is I just connect to an EC2 instance. So I just use EC2 instance connect to it quickly. So what I do is I just install the stress utility, which will put some load on this CPU. So you can use these commands if you are following along with the demo. And I just install the utility. The utility is now installed, so I'm just running this stress command now. So basically what I'm saying here ki just stress this CPU 32 micro instance, so I already have a single core CPU for 300 seconds. So now my initially the stress utility is running, so my CPU utilization is going to increase, and you can monitor it also from here. If I go to my instance, so we have a monitoring section here. So right now we don't have any data because it may take some time for it to get refreshed. So I just set the interview as just 1 minute. So eventually in some time we'll see that the CPU utilization will increase for this CPU. So I just pause the video till then. Okay, so we have made it for around 5 to 10 minutes now. So just refresh this for this instance. So if you see the CPU utilization reached around 84% in the specified time, and if you remember our CPU utilization for the scaling policy was set as 50%. So just go to this and just refresh this. So if you see, like, we have 2 new events in the activity history, and it is mentioning that the alarm got triggered because the utilization anyways increased across 50%. So in response to that event, the auto scaling group increased the capacity from 2 to 4. So if I go to EC2 instance now, if you see 2 new instances have been initialized, start initializing, I just refresh. So if you see now we have around 4 instances which are running, and since we specified the maximum instance as 4, so it's not going to cross that 4 instance. And if I now go back to the EC2 instance, if you see the stress utility has completed execution, so now the CPU utilization is going to come down, and in response to it coming down, due to my target scaling policy being maintaining the utilization at 50%, so once it notices that the utilization is very low, so it will start terminating my EC2 instance also. So we'll just give it a few minutes because the CloudWatch monitoring takes about 5 minutes to send the data for the alarms. Okay, so we are back. So if you see now the CPU utilization reached 84%, and gradually as it reduced to 0% now. So if I go to the activity section and click on refresh, so if you see now it has started terminating my instances. So there are 2 new events here. So once it the CloudWatch alarm got triggered and it detected that my utilization was below 50% now, so it started terminating my instance. So if you see here, it is mentioning shrinking the capacity from 4 to 3 and then from 3 to 2 as well. And if I go to my instance and just refresh this, so if you see, the instances have now started getting terminated. So earlier I had 4, now I have 3 instances running, and as it is terminating one more instance, it will go back again to 2 instances. So now you see the other one has also started shutting down. So now I have 2 instances running, which is as per my minimum and desired capacity. So the auto scaling group ensured that I already have every time like my application is running, I have an optimal utilization based on the instances. So my capacity is not over or underutilized. So based on my scaling policy, it is automatically provisioned or terminated the instance to maintain a desired capacity of around 50 CPU utilization. And if you see the activity history, this is how we started. We started with 0 to 2 instance when we started the auto scaling group, and we tried terminating one of the instance. So in response to that, as the minimum capacity decreased, it provisioned one more instance to make it at 2. And once we stressed our CPU to increase the CPU utilization, then again it detected the same, the alarm got triggered and the capacity was increased from 2 to 4. And gradually, as the CPU utilization came down, then again it terminated the instance to reduce the capacity and ensure that only 2 instances are running at a time. So this is a very good way to ensure you are not being overcharged or you are not over provisioned or under provisioned. You already have a balanced number of EC2 instances running, which is going to provision or serve your users. So once you are done with this, so just remember to remove delete your auto scaling groups. I just click on delete. So this will ensure you are not getting charged unnecessarily, and just click on refresh here. So as you deleted your auto scaling group, so it has also started terminating the other instances as well. So just refresh this and make sure you don't have any instance running so you don't get charged unnecessarily. So thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section. Yeah. Thank you.